We remember World War II as a clear moral story: good versus evil, heroes versus monsters, freedom versus tyranny. That version is comforting, but it's also incomplete. Because wars this large don't start with villains, they start with permission, and by the time the bombs fall, everyone has already agreed to something dangerous. After the First World War, the world didn't heal. It punished. The Treaty of Versailles was less a peace treaty and more a declaration of blame, aimed squarely at Germany. The country was humiliated, its economy crippled by impossible reparations, its territory carved up across Europe. New borders were drawn with little regard for the people living within them, creating new tensions and new resentments. Economies everywhere collapsed under the weight of the Great Depression. Millions were left angry, unemployed, and desperate for a way out. The treaty didn't prevent a future war. It all but guaranteed one, and this gives us history's first lesson: when peace is built on a foundation of resentment, violence simply waits for its moment. In Germany, that moment arrived. Adolf Hitler didn't seize power overnight in a violent coup. He was invited in, he was elected, he was normalized, step by step. The institutions that should have resisted him instead enabled him. His message resonated because it was simple and powerful. He spoke directly to Germany's wounded pride and promised to restore its former glory. Crucially, he gave the people someone to blame for their suffering: the Jews, the communists, foreigners, anyone who was other. This formula is chillingly effective and has been used by extremist movements ever since. First, find a source of genuine pain. Second, assign blame to a specific group. Third, promise a return to greatness. Once a nation's fear is focused like this, atrocities can stop being unthinkable and start becoming policy. But Germany wasn't alone. In Italy, Mussolini dreamed of resurrecting the Roman Empire, driven by a national hunger for relevance on the world stage. In Japan, an island nation with few natural resources, leaders believed that aggressive expansion was the only path to survival. They saw a world dominated by Western colonial powers and concluded that to avoid being controlled, they had to become controllers themselves. This wasn't about a shared ideology. It was about national insecurity armed with modern military power. Both Italy and Japan believed that their destinies could only be secured through conquest, setting them on a collision course with the rest of the world. And what about the Allies? Their story isn't as pure as we like to remember. In the years leading up to the war, Britain and France had multiple opportunities to confront Hitler's aggression. Instead, they chose appeasement. They let him remilitarize the Rhineland, annex Austria, and take Czechoslovakia. Not because they agreed with him, but because they were haunted by the memory of World War I. They were economically broken, militarily unprepared, and terrified of another catastrophic conflict. Meanwhile, the United States maintained a policy of isolationism, watching from afar as Europe burned. And the Soviet Union, Stalin initially saw an opportunity, signing a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany to divide Poland and buy himself time. The moral clarity of World War II didn't exist from the start. It was born from years of hesitation, cynical calculation, and national self-interest. When the war finally came, it was unlike any before it. This wasn't a war fought only on battlefields between soldiers. It was total war, where the line between combatant and civilian was erased. Cities were wiped off the map by strategic bombing campaigns. Entire national economies were converted into relentless machines of war, producing tanks, planes, and bombs on an industrial scale. Science, once a tool for progress, was repurposed for extermination. The Holocaust was not a spontaneous outburst of hatred. It was the terrifying result of cold, bureaucratic efficiency. It was organized evil, complete with paperwork, train schedules, and quotas. It reminds us that genocide doesn't begin with violence. It begins with the dehumanizing language of spreadsheets and government memos. The vast majority of people who experienced World War II were not soldiers. They were ordinary civilians caught in the crossfire. They were the ones bombed in their homes at night, from London during the Blitz to the firestorm of Dresden. They were the ones who were starved slowly as supply lines were cut, and resources were diverted to the war effort. They were the ones displaced from their homes, becoming refugees in their own countries. From the horrific atrocities committed in Nanking to the unimaginable destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, no side emerged with its hands completely clean. The grim innovation of modern warfare wasn't that it made killing easier, but that it made it impersonal, distant, and achievable on a scale never before imagined. The war in Europe ended in May 1945, but the conflict in the Pacific raged on. It ended in August, with two flashes of light that changed the world forever. When the atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Second World War was over. But something new and far more terrifying had begun. For the first time in history, humanity had proven it possessed the technological means to cause its own extinction. Victory came with a permanent, silent warning, a shadow we have lived under ever since. So, is the war really over? The fighting stopped, the treaties were signed, but the forces that caused it never truly went away. Economic despair still breeds political extremism. National humiliation is still a powerful tool for leaders who sell fear as patriotism. And our technology continues to advance far faster than our ethical understanding of how to use it. We constantly say never again, but history doesn't repeat because people forget the past. It repeats because we convince ourselves that this time it will be different. It never is. The story of World War II isn't just history, it's a warning. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think, consider subscribing for more.